Hi, welcome to this SQL video tutorial on the case statement. The case statement is an if statement. So it asks a question which is going to be true or false, and depending on whether it's true or false, it returns or returns some sort of piece of data. I'm going to go through a few examples of how we write the case statements. There's lots of different ways, there's rules and whatever else. I'm going to go through a few examples, hopefully to give you the idea of how they're used and when you might be able to use them. So let's have a look at the first one here. So if we're going to write a case statement, we begin by typing case. Then we need to ask it a question. We need to give it some sort of true or false formula. So if we say when ft is black equals 0, then false, else true. And then to finish it off, you've got to put end. And ideally you give it an alias. Okay, so if I run this, it now then returns true or false depending on the value in this column, whether it's 0 or 1. And if I just maybe do this to make it a little bit easier to see. So case, when this column equals 0, put false, else put true, and then that's the name of my column. To give it another example, if you're doing if you're using the same column and you're going to be using the conditions in the same way, then you can write things ever so slightly differently. So I'm going to show you an example of this. So if we do case ft sum and val, because this is the column we're interested in, then we can say when 1, then 1, when 2, then 2, when 3, then 3, else for more. And then we've got to finish with end and give it an alias. You don't need to give it an alias, but you should do. If I run that, you'll now see 1, more, 3, 2 based on the value in here. So what this is doing is I'm only referencing the single column, but also my I'm doing the same kind of comparison. So if sum of value equals 1, if it equals 2, if it equals 3, if I was saying if it's greater than, if it's less than, if it doesn't equal, if I was doing different kind of calculations, I couldn't do it like this. I couldn't begin with my column. I'd have to put the calculation in here if they were different. But because I'm doing the same sort of calculation, this works. Now, something to note is the responses here following the then or the else, they're all going to be the same data type. So if I change that 3 to be the number 3 and I try to run that, it would have a moment and say you can't do that. This is text, that's a number, they aren't the same, I'm sorry, you can't do it. So as long as the data types are the same, it's fine. I could then say, I mean, it'd be pointless be doing it, but I could do one. I could do anything here. I could do anything as long as they're all the same value. And there's numbers being returned here, or even I could bring back columns. It's got to be the same data type, so I'll do that as well. So as long as they're bringing back the same data types, it's happy, the case statement. Okay, so let's think about another example. If we look at case when ft sum and val is less than 3, then low. When ft sum and val is between 3 and 4, then medium, else high, end. Cost. I'm just going to comment these out so we don't lose them off the right hand side. But now I'll run this one, and it's returning low, medium, or high depending on the value in this column. But because I'm using different formulas, I've got to put them separately within each when clause. You don't need an else either. Ideally, you should put an else just in case. If you know these are only ever going to be 1 or 0, then you could just put if it equals 1, if it equals 0, and that would do. But ideally, you should put an else just in case something happens and it returns a value you're not expecting. So let me try another example as well then here if I can, and we'll say case when. So let's start adding a bit more to this. Len ft types minus len replace ft types. So the replace statement that I've covered in a previous video replaces one value with another. Remember the end. So what this is doing here, it's saying if the length of this column here minus the length of the same column but without the commas, if it equals 1, then there are no commas, so it is just a single card type. If there are commas, then this will not equal 0, so it's multiple card types. And the last example I want to do is this one. Now I've already got this. I'm just going to copy it from a different screen here if I may, just to save a little bit of time. And the reason I'm going to use this one here is for another example. So what this one is doing, if I just comment out these two. So this one's doing a little calculation as well. So it's saying if that plus that equals 2, then it's a black-blue card. If I could type. If green plus red equals 2, then it's a green-red card. Otherwise, it's neither. Imagine that's all I'm interested in. So if I run that, I've got some neithers there, but if I go down a few clicks, I should. There's a black-blue. So there's a few examples of, but there was a red-green there. But my point of this one here is, because I can put it up here, because I can put it and it returns a value, I can use it in my where clause. So I can say where, get rid of the comma, and also get rid of the alias because it's got nothing to do with it. It's not a column, we're just doing it as a calculation. So where the result of my case statement, case to end, and I know it's going to return that, or it's going to return that, or it's going to return that. So I can say where my case statement equals red, green. And so it limits my data based on the results of my case statement. That's the end of this video. I hope you found it helpful.